This is Mottek On Money. We are doing it live right here, weeknights in the 5 o'clock hour. Happy Thanksgiving Eve to you. Mottek On Money, 5 nights a week, live on the air right here on 790 KBC, streaming live online worldwide at kbc.com, and the on-demand Mottek On Money podcast at kbc.com, Apple, iTunes, and all your favorite podcast platforms. Thanksgiving Eve, well, something to be thankful for. We see stocks ending higher today. Investors taking in a bunch of economic data, a full plate of economic reports today, including the October durable goods orders and the consumer confidence reading ahead of the Thanksgiving holiday tomorrow. The markets will be closed tomorrow. We'll have a shortened holiday trading session on Friday. The Dow came in for a closing gain of nearly 200 points. The S&P 500 up 18 and the NASDAQ moved up 66 points. Stocks finishing higher today ahead of the Thanksgiving Day holiday and the annual Black Friday retail shopping extravaganza, with activity decreasing as investors showed reluctance to place new bets ahead of the trading break tomorrow. According to MarketWatch, we saw NVIDIA releasing its earnings following the closing bell yesterday. The AI chip maker beat revenue and profit expectations in the third quarter, but the stock took a drop today by 2.5%. NVIDIA, of course, has been one of the leaders in the AI world and led the Magnificent Seven rally that we've seen this year. The market's reaction to NVIDIA's results might have also capped investors' enthusiasm about the future of AI, according to some analysts. We'll get an update on that here momentarily. Also, the notes from the Fed's last big policy-setting meeting released on Tuesday provided little reason for investors to change their view on bonds. We saw the yield on the 10-year note slipping slightly to 4.41%. Good news, mortgage rates have come down recently from 23-year highs. Another report on consumer confidence out today showed that Americans' inflation expectations for next year rose for a second straight month in November. Durable goods orders declining by nearly 5.5%, or $16 billion in October, according to the Census Bureau. And unemployment lines got a bit shorter this past week. It looks like a 5-week low of 209,000, indicating the labor market is still quite sturdy at this point. In the Middle East, following the latest headlines, Israel's national security advisor said hostages will not be released before Friday. We'll get an update on what's happening in the Middle East tonight with Middle East expert Lisa DAFTARI, editor-in-chief of the Foreign Desk. She recently received the Champion of Freedom Award at the Jewish Journal Gala in Beverly Hills. Lisa DAFTARI will be joining me live later this hour. And looking for something to do on Thanksgiving besides expressing thanks and stuffing your face? Well, the LA Auto Show will be open tomorrow, Thanksgiving Day, at the LA Convention Center. It started last weekend and wraps up this weekend. Coming up later this hour, I'll be joined by business and automotive journalist Richard Saxton, who's had a chance to check things out. He'll be joining us live later this hour to tell us what's new and exciting at the LA Auto Show this year. But first, on your money, the markets, the economy, the Magnificent Seven, and the whole works. Joining us live now, Matt KRANTZ, finance and managing editor at the Authoritative Investors Business Daily, IBD. Matt, thanks very much for taking the call. Great to reconnect with you here, and always enjoy your articles in Investors Business Daily. Give us your view of this latest market action here, first of all.
Yeah, the market's in a kind of wait and see as we look at the yield on treasuries, as you mentioned earlier, have backed off. They were pushing like 5%. Now they're back down to 4.4, like you said. That's a plus because it helps the tech stocks. Adding to that is this AI boom, and it's been an absolute boom. It basically saved the market, let's be honest. And so you've got tech just flying, which is good because that drives the market basically because the market's market cap weighted. So just to give you some analysis here, since the end of last month, the technology sector is up 13%. So that's basically more than a year's of return of the S&P in 1 month, less than 1 month, which is amazing.
That's impressive. On the Air Live with Matt KRANTZ from Investors Business Daily, and NVIDIA certainly getting a lot of attention this year, and especially today on its better than expected earnings news, but the stock pulled back today. Matt, give us an update on what's happening there with NVIDIA.
Yeah, everybody loves NVIDIA, and it has been like basically the best stock in the S&P 500 this year. It's running really hard. It's up 233% just this year, and it's up 20% since the end of last month. Problem is, it's not a secret anymore. We all know what they do. We have their earnings expectations. They're giant. We all know that. So the valuation on that stock has gotten so high that even good news, it has to be not just good news, it has to be insanely good news for the stock to move higher.
All right, we've seen Microsoft hit record highs lately, and I think I buried the lead here. It looks like Sam Altman is returning as the OpenAI CEO after infighting at that AI startup, which was supported by Microsoft. And the news came this week that he was blown out as OpenAI CEO, and then went to Microsoft. Now he's back at the helm of OpenAI. Tell us about that drama.
Yeah, it's pretty. You got to hand it to Microsoft. They're playing this really well. They've got a leg up on everybody, including Apple. I've never seen Apple kind of struggling like they are now. They think they still have Siri. So Microsoft is completely pulling ahead. They played this thing with OpenAI perfectly. They have a stake in the company. They had it for years. When that thing looked like it was falling apart, they grabbed the guy that mattered quickly. And now that he's going back, they kind of smoothed it over. So just really well played. And this shows other entrepreneurs that Microsoft may want to acquire in this AI race that they're a good partner to deal with. That stock's up 12% in the last month. And Microsoft, the giant, the second largest company in the S&P 500, is up 58% this year. That is an astounding move.
That's pretty amazing. Microsoft shares have been rising despite the drama at AI partner OpenAI, and now maybe because of it, since now he's back on the top there. And what happened? It looks like the board, some board members did not support the Sam Altman, and looks like they're going to be leaving now. What else do we need to know about what's happening there?
Yeah, they're shuffling up the board. I think that's still kind of being hashed out. I think the Wall Street Journal is trying to get on that, and they've got some names that are being bandied about. So I think they're basically kind of filing below or behind Altman and supporting getting rid of anyone that tried to get rid of him. So it's a pretty interesting coup. I think there's going to be some interesting details coming out of this. I haven't heard them. I don't know exactly what's going on, except they're forming a new board right now.
All right, interesting what you said about Apple. What about Apple here?
They're poor Apple. First of all, we have to be square here. The stock's up 47%, so we can't pity them too bad. But they don't have an AI strategy. So basically, everyone's pulling ahead. Amazon, Microsoft, even Facebook's got an AI play, but Apple doesn't. They're over here with their kind of overpriced Oculus Rift goggles that no one's buying. They're milking this iPhone for all it's worth. But eventually, let's face it, it's a stagnant market. It's a lot like the PC market in the 20s or in the 2020s, and it's pretty flat. And so they're going to have to come up with something, or they're going to kind of slip behind, I think.
All right. In the meantime, we've seen quite a rebound lately, as you mentioned, as those bond yields have eased. The stock market has rallied, with the Dow actually at a 3-month high here, just ahead of the Thanksgiving holiday break tomorrow. What are your market monitors saying about where this thing goes from here?
Yeah, this technology rally kind of caught everyone off guard, and it's really important. As we mentioned earlier, this basically drives the market. So if you look at every stock across the globe, there's kind of a top 10. There's 10 stocks that drove about 80% of all the returns. They're almost all tech, including the ones overseas. So you need a healthy tech market to have a healthy stock market. That's what we've got. It's interesting, too. Just behind tech, you've got communications, which are doing great. That you have to keep in mind. That's Google and Facebook. So those two sectors are really driving this market, which we really need because they're so important.
All right, you're right here in Los Angeles with us. So you've been following the drama with all the labor action this year, including the one that shut down Hollywood, and we have a resolution finally to the actors' strike, although the final vote is not in yet. And AI, of course, a big part of the decision-making among members out there. But what about the media names at this point following the labor drama that we've seen this year?
It's been tough. And I think the firm that really encapsulates everything is Disney. They were riding high when everything was going well. The pandemic hit. Things fell apart. Iger comes back. And it's not the easy fix, I think, that he was banking on. The stock is trailing the S&P 500, although it's not a disaster. It's up 9.4% this year, just trailing the S&P, which is up, I think, about 18 or 19%. But it's definitely lagging, and he's being, pummeled by the activist investors to drive more profit out of it. And then he's got all these strikes that he had to resolve. So, I think it's an industry in flux. I don't think we can expect much this year, but maybe it's one to watch for next year. But again, we need tech is where the action is.
All right. What about Netflix, which, by the way, is just below its 52-week high of $4.85, about $7 below that. So we're keeping an eye on that one, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It's one of the Magnificent Seven, one of the great seven stocks that have driven the market. The stock's up 62%. That's incredible because it's a year of, as you mentioned, strikes and labor disputes, and they're still up that much. It's rallied back strong in this market rally. It's actually outperforming the technology sector. People are very optimistic that there's going to be a nice ad business for them waiting. They're pushing into gaming big time, which is going to be interesting. And I think we're going to see some consolidation in the streamers, and I definitely think it's going to benefit Netflix because there's going to be less competition eventually, or maybe some of these guys are going to combine.
And here we are the day before Thanksgiving. We got the holiday shopping season underway. We have those fantastic, dazzling displays kicking off the holiday season in Beverly Hills and at the Grove and many of the other popular shopping destinations throughout Southern California. What about the retail names heading into the holiday season?
Yeah, the king of retail.
The football season is underway, and Believe podcasts are talking about it.
When he went home and went to sleep, Michael Parsons was just terrorizing him.
Believe has podcasts covering all 32 professional teams and many of your favorite college teams, too.
And to be only producing 15 points a game, that's something that is definitely disheartening.
Sideline to sideline, end zone to end zone.
As a quarterback, I would expect him to be acting like that. Take the accountability. Put that on yourself. Don't put it on your teammates.
Search BLEAV podcasts wherever you listen.
Is Amazon, of course, for most people, and it's part of the Magnificent Seven as well, and they're up huge this year, 75%. They actually have an AI play as well, and that's going to be really interesting to shopping, as you can have a bot kind of suggesting you to buy certain things that you can't resist. But with that said, Macy's has been kind of a surprise. Terrible year, terrible, down 28%, because who goes to department stores anymore? With that said, it's up 22% just in the past few weeks. So clearly, I think it's one of these things where it's not going to be great, but it's not going to be terrible. And with a stock like Macy's, that's pretty darn good.
On there live with Matt KRANTZ from Investors Business Daily. And what about the oil names, which have seen a big rally this year, but then a pullback here as oil has moved lower even since the war broke out in the Middle East, right now hovering in the $76 range. What about the oil names here?
Yeah, energy was really kind of driving things last month when tech was falling apart. But it's funny what happened on the way to the tech rally. Since the end of last month, energy is actually the only sector in the S&P 500 that's down. It's not down much. It's down less than 1%. But still, when you're looking at the S&P up, what is the S&P? It's up almost 9% in that period. So being down 1, it kind of hurts. ExxonMobil kind of reflecting that. It's down 1.7%. There's been some outliers. There's some smaller firms that have done well, have done better. But right now, energy is not where the action is. People are now just loading up on, they want risk, and they're getting it from tech and communications.
All right, and we got the LA Auto Show underway. I'll be talking to Richard Saxton about that later this hour. Certainly the auto names have been in focus with the UAW strike, which has also now been resolved. Tesla appears to have had a big year, right? Hovering at around 234 and change here at the moment. What about the automotive names here, given all the drama we've seen this year, and specifically the EV names at this point?
Yeah, it's kind of Tesla and the seven dwarfs. You've got Tesla stock up 90% year to date, despite kind of a rough last month. And then meanwhile, Ford's down for the year, and so is GM. Those two stocks, it's actually stunning. GM and Ford are trading for below book value, which basically means they're better off being dead than alive, which is kind of scary. And it's also interesting that Warren Buffett finally threw in the towel on General Motors. He had owned that stock for a couple quarters. He dumped it all last quarter. So really, again, it's Tesla and the seven dwarfs. I mean, no one can touch these guys. People don't just want to buy an EV. It seems they want to buy a Tesla.
All right, and it's been a rough ride for some of the EV makers. Fisker, for example, certainly on Wall Street anyway, it's been a bumpy ride for Fisker, Lucid, and some of the other names. Are you following those as well?
Yeah, again, they're just kind of all seen as also-rans. I think BYD is interesting because it's owned by Warren Buffett, and it's actually, I think they're outranking Tesla now in terms of some forms of production, but it's nowhere near the kind of cachet in the United States. I mean, So I think EVs is really about Tesla. The question is how they're going to navigate this Cybertruck thing. Some of the analysts are now saying they'd be better off without it. With that said, their valuation is so high that they almost need a moonshot for this thing to pay off. So this could be an interesting 2024 on Tesla.
All right, what about some of the Chinese auto names? Li Auto was mentioned on this program this week, and then, of course, NIO, the so-called Tesla of China. What about those names?
Yeah, Chinese stocks have been lagging. The economy in China has been it's growing, but not as quickly as it had been. I think there's some systemic issues there. They need to get figured out. There's a real estate kind of a shadow banking crisis. So I think the smart money is kind of steering clear of that whole mess at this point in time. We'll have to see. Plus, don't forget all the strange kind of protectionist measures that are being bandied about and could get worse, after the election.
All right, and we've seen a lot of drama in the crypto world with the resignations, guilty pleas, and the whole works lately. What about the crypto space? And P.S., we've seen Bitcoin and the others have a big rally this year.
Yeah, if you think Netflix did great, Bitcoin's even better. The ProShares Bitcoin Strategy ETF, which is really kind of the only game in town at this point, is up 82% year to date. That beats Netflix. Bitcoin has been an amazing performer. I was just looking at it on Morningstar. In the past 10 years, it's basically blown away any possible investment you could have made in over a 10-year period. It's just done extremely well. I think it's kind of a solution. And looking for a question, they're finding some uses of it for gaming and whatnot, but it's really kind of surprised everybody. It's doing great.
Right, it certainly still has its big fans and very harsh critics. So we continue to follow it closely. And P.S. Gold making a run for a record high this week. It pumped above 2,000 right now, just below 2K. What about gold here?
Yeah, let me take a look at that. Yeah, you would have thought it would have done great. We've had inflation, runaway inflation. This seems like the time to own gold, but it really has been kind of disappointing. Again, year to date, up 8.8%. It's not bad, but you would have been better off with the S&P 500. You would have been better off with Bitcoin. So I think that some younger investors, at least this is what people tell me, are looking more to crypto for that kind of panic sell or trade, something to hold during tough times. And gold is just kind of losing its luster over time. With that said, it's been around for centuries. It's not going anywhere, but it's just not the game. It's not where people are playing right now.
Terrific, Matt. Well, thank you very much for taking the call here on this Thanksgiving Eve. We wish you and everyone there a happy Thanksgiving. That is Matt KRANTZ, Finance and Management Editor at Investors Business Daily here in Southern California, IBD. Matt, we'll be looking for your articles, and thank you very much for taking the call live with us here tonight.
Thank you.
Folks, people like you and me have our ear to the ground on all things business. We like to be informed and well prepared. And as important as finance is, I want you to have a plan in case you're hit by someone not paying attention to the road. Thinking ahead serves us well. And even still, we can get caught off guard as people are so focused on their destination that they might not have a plan in place if they're in an accident that's not their fault. That's why I encourage you to put my friend, Attorney Clark Fielding's number in your phone, 833-88-SHARK. So if you're hurt in an accident, you'll be ready with your strategy to make Clark Fielding your first call. Fielding Law aims for the highest possible settlements, considering you might need long-term care, rehab, compensation for lost wages, and any ongoing physical or emotional pain. So if you're hurt in any kind of accident, call for a free consultation with Fielding Law. You can trust them. They're honest, respected, and your strategy in case you get into that unexpected accident. Motorcycle, truck, pedestrian, scooter, hit and run, boating, or bike accidents, you name it. Call 833-88-SHARK. That's 833-88-SHARK. Or go to clarkthesharklaw.com. 790 KBC welcomes the Trilogy Tour with Enrique Iglesias, Pitbull, and, you guessed it, Ricky Martin. Coming to the Honda Center February 3rd. Tickets on sale now at Ticketmaster.com. And right now, caller 9 wins at 1-888-790-5222. You can get a pair of tickets to the show and live the Vida Loca. If you're caller 9, you win 1-888-790-5222. Mottek On Money continues here in 790 KBC. Happy Thanksgiving Eve. Happy Thanksgiving, and thank you for listening to Mottek On Money here in 790 KABC. The Dow coming in for a closing gain of 185 points today. It settled at 35,273 ahead of the Thanksgiving holiday break. Our markets will be closed tomorrow. We'll have a holiday shortened session on Friday. The S&P 500 moved up 18 to 4,557. The Nasdaq gained 66 at 14,266. The yield on the 10-year note has eased to 4.41%. Mortgage rates coming down again this week from recent 23-year highs. NVIDIA shares pulling back about $12 today at $487 and change, despite the blowout earnings news from that AI giant. Amazon moving a bit higher, and we see Microsoft hitting new highs, up nearly $5 today at $377 and change. Apple up 67 cents at $191.31. Tesla pulling back about $7 at $234 and change. Checking the cryptos now, we see a Bitcoin pulling back about 70 at 37,375. Ethereum down about 13 now at 2,069, and Doge at 7 cents. Mottek On Money continues here in 790 KABC. Turning now to the Middle East. Israel's national security advisor says hostages will not be released before Friday. Earlier in the evening, the Prime Minister of Israel, Netanyahu, held a news conference with Israeli Defense Minister Yoav Gallant, where the Prime Minister defended the hostage-prisoner exchange, calling it the right choice. Israel reportedly carried out strikes in Lebanon in which the son of a top Hezbollah politician was killed. The Israeli Defense Forces continue Gaza ground operations as the Israeli Air Force has shot down a cruise missile launched at Eilat, Israel. And at least 1,200 civilians and soldiers have been killed in Israel since the October 7th terror attack, and about 240 hostages have been held in the Gaza Strip, taken from Israel. An Israeli source telling Haaretz, the Israeli newspaper, that there will be no halt to the fighting in the Gaza Strip as long as there is no finalized timeline for the agreement with Hamas. An Israeli source also telling Haaretz the delay in implementation of the ceasefire deal between Israel and Hamas is because Hamas has not yet submitted the list of Israeli nationals it intends to release. The second reason, according to the source, is that the organization still has not ratified the ceasefire deal with Qatar, which is supposed to guarantee that all sides abide by the agreed terms. Joining us live now is Middle East expert Lisa Daftari, editor-in-chief of the Foreign Desk on X, formerly known as Twitter, at Lisa Daftari. Thank you very much, Lisa, for joining us live here tonight. What's the very latest coming across your desk there from Israel?
Yeah, you gave a great synopsis of what's going on. Everyone's just waiting with bated breath to see whether or not this prisoner release deal goes through the way it has been intended. Obviously, a very difficult choice for Israel and Bibi Netanyahu. In the late hours last night, he did agree to the deal that, again, has been brokered by Qatar mainly. Again, a very questionable middleman here. We have Qatar, who has been the honest broker of the West in terms of dealing with terror organizations, but at the same time feeding and funding and housing main leaders of Hamas in Qatar. So there's a lot of questions to be asked on whether or not they are the honest broker and why the West continues to rely on them for these kinds of deals. But in the meantime, Israel did make the decision because they wanted to get the women and children out. We are told that the first 50 hostages to be released are supposed to be those who are under the age of 19. Again, no confirmation on any of that. As you said, names or identities have not been released. We don't even know who among the hostages is still alive and who is not, and who they intend to give back and who they intend to keep. I remind everyone who is calling for a ceasefire that if they were to release the 240 hostages in total, there would be a very different 6.5 weeks that we just experienced. This will go on until Israel does get its hostages back. That is the first, the priority, the first action, in terms of order of operations. And secondly, obviously, to decimate Hamas in the best way possible so that this does not happen again. When we look at the Palestinian people, of course, that death toll is rising. We don't have an accurate death toll because the numbers we are getting are from the Hamas health ministry, and of course, it's very difficult to trust them or anything that they say at this point, but we do know that there obviously is a death toll. Using them as human shields, putting them in hospitals where Hamas headquarters are located in the basement, where they are holding weapons, where they are using it as a depot, as a launching pad, etc. We're looking, again, at two different wars. One is the war of information, the narrative war that we are fighting constantly here, whether it's on social media or the mainstream media, and the second one, obviously, in the Middle East where things are flaring up. You mentioned Lebanon. I just want to say lastly that Lebanon has kind of tiptoed its way into this war, not really fully escalating to the point of it being a full second front. But the IDF has been busy retaliating. There has been more than 65 attacks from Lebanon since the beginning of this war. So when Israel begins to retaliate, I know the mainstream media will go berserk, not understanding that from day one, Hezbollah inside Lebanon has been attacking Israel as well. I will also note that Hezbollah is a much better endowed, better trained, and has better military might than Hamas does. So should they get involved in a very highly escalated war, it will be very difficult for Israel to manage the two, although I'm sure that they will find a way, because that has been the complete existence of Israel for the last 75 years, is to be surrounded by enemies.
Welcome to Talkville.
The ultimate Smallville rewatch podcast. I always drove the cars, the Porsche, Ferrari, Lamborghinis. They were always a little skeptical, but sometimes they go, all right, Rosie, just go up where the stop sign is and turn the car around, and we'll give you your cue on the walkie. And I go, great. And they're like, Rosie? I'm like, yeah, dude. Oh, yeah, this stop sign? They're like, yes, there's only that stop. Oh, okay.
Jump in now or catch up on any of the past seasons of Talkville on YouTube or wherever you listen.
And to have the capacity, the ability, the intelligence to ward off all of these different enemies.
They're live with Lisa DAFTARI. It was 24 hours ago that I was speaking live from Israel with Rabbi Abraham Cooper from the Simon Wiesenthal Center, who's in Israel right now. It was early morning 24 hours ago when the Israeli lawmakers approved this hostage release deal, which is still coming together. At this point, Lisa DAFTARI, do you think this will happen? We understand now that hostages will not be released before Friday. That's the very latest news from Israel's national security advisor. There are many moving parts here, as you noted, but do you think this will ultimately happen?
You know, a lot of people are criticizing Israel, those who obviously don't have loved ones who are being held hostage, because if you think about the babies, the toddlers, the women that have been raped and are still being held hostage by Hamas, the elderly who are not getting their medication or proper medical treatment, when you think about all those people, you understand why Bibi Netanyahu made the decisions that he made. Now, in exchange for 240, well, the first 50, it's 3-1, meaning they want 3 terrorists that are being held by Israel to be released for every one innocent civilian. So it's a very lopsided deal, does not make any sense. And, of course, these terrorists will go back to plotting more terror. So it becomes a question of tactics. Why did Israel do this in terms of their national security? I think Israel, on their part, would like the deal to go through because it prioritizes what is important to Israel. This differentiates them from the terrorists, of course, from the leadership that we're seeing for the Palestinians, which is to prioritize life, to prioritize civilians. On the other end, for Hamas, I mean, they will get some sort of mini ceasefires, some pauses, and some, kind of reprieve, which we don't know if we want them to have. Of course, they will go back to planning and plotting and hiding and finding ways to dodge the IDF, which makes it more difficult. We know about their tunnels of terror. We know that they're hiding in very, very, very sophisticated ways under, again, schools and mosques and hospitals, places where they believe Israel will not go, IDF soldiers will not go. So will Hamas back out of this when they are getting so much out of it? I don't know. I don't know if they'll play the game of waiting and seeing if they can get more out of this, seeing if they can drag this war out to continue their terror on Israel and on the IDF. Look, when you're dealing with, this is not a sovereign state. You're dealing with terrorists who do not follow any sort of international law. They do not follow the rule of law. They do not follow the laws of war. They are absolute barbarians. That is why we don't really know what will happen next. We know that the way that the IDF operates, we know that they will do whatever they can to, secure those hostages and get them back safely. And in the meantime, trying to balance, decimating Hamas, trying to balance different fronts, trying to think about the future of the West Bank and Gaza in terms of who will be their neighbor, who will continue, who will be the leadership for the Palestinian people, so that this does not happen again. This is an absolute existential threat for Israel, and not for that. It's a very, very difficult calculation to make. So we'll be watching in the next 48 hours. A lot will develop, and we'll probably have more of this to come. This is only the first 50 hostages. If this goes through, we will still have to continue this war and to continue seeing how Israel will be able to get back the rest of those hostages.
Middle East expert Lisa DAFTARI, the editor-in-chief of the Foreign Desk. And congratulations, Lisa DAFTARI. Your latest honor was the Champion of Freedom Award at the Jewish Journal Gala recently in Beverly Hills. And again, you've done amazing work highlighting the plight of women in Iran, especially given what's happened in recent years. And we will continue to follow you closely on X, formerly known as Twitter, and, of course, at the Foreign Desk News. Thank you very much for taking the call live with us here tonight. We wish you and everyone there a happy Thanksgiving and look forward to your next update. Thank you very much for joining us live here tonight.
Thank you. To you as well.
Thank you very much. Lisa DAFTARI live with us here on Mottek On Money on 790 KBC. Mottek On Money continues here on 790 KBC. The LA Auto Show is underway. It's a big one at the LA Convention Center. And are you looking for something to do on Thanksgiving besides stuffing your face? Well, the LA Auto Show will be open, as it turns out, on Thanksgiving. It started last weekend, wraps up this weekend, and joining us live now is business and automotive journalist Richard Saxton. He's had a chance to check things out there and joins us live now to continue a tradition here on Mottek On Money on 790 KBC with a thorough update on what's happening at the LA Auto Show. Richard, thank you very much for taking the call here. Take it from the top, and what's caught your attention there at the auto show?
Well, Frank, typically there's probably 15 to 20 new vehicle introductions, either world debuts or North American debuts. But at this show last Thursday, Media Day, only really 4 significant introductions at the LA show. And the high-end luxury EV manufacturer Lucid, which I know you follow because they have a publicly traded stock, LCID, they, as expected, debuted the Lucid Gravity, a 7-passenger all-electric SUV, which will be out late next year and sell for around $80,000. And it'll have a range of about 440 miles and 800 horsepower, so it'll be a lot of gravity for that vehicle, which is called the Gravity. Interesting that Lucid is almost like the luxury brand of Tesla because they have so many former Tesla employees running the show there as executives and so on. But I know, as you regularly point out, year-to-date, Lucid stock is down 38.5%. But the Gravity was a nice introduction. Another one was from Subaru, the new Forester with 180 horsepower. And they always have one of the best displays at the LA Auto Show with their National Parks exhibit. So the new Subaru Forester on display. Hyundai was there, and they introduced the all-new 3-row Santa Fe, the Hyundai Santa Fe. It'll go on sale this spring. It has 277 horsepower, and it's about 6 inches shorter than their large 3-row SUV, the Palisade. So make sure you check out the Hyundai Santa Fe. Kia was there with their kind of mid-cycle uplift to the Sorento. It's got a new front end, offers 191 horsepower standard engine or 281 horsepower turbo. And the refreshed Sorento will arrive in the first quarter of next year. Kia also had the EV3 and EV4 concept vehicles, which are the smaller versions of their EVs currently on the market, like EV5, 6, and 7. Ford has a big exhibit there. They offer rides in the Ford Bronco around a small track. Toyota has their new 2025 Crown Signia Hybrid on display, that vehicle coming out next summer. Genesis has the GV80 Coupe there for you to look at. Nissan, Honda, Acura, Subaru, Kia, Hyundai, all there. Volkswagen does have a display as well with their electric vehicles, the ID4 and ID7 on display. But, Frank, I think probably your favorite and my favorite was the Ford Mustang GTD. 800-plus horsepower, and it's going to sell for just about $300,000, so we may want to take a couple of those. And, of course, I know you like the Corvette as well. The E-Ray, the 655-horsepower E-Ray Corvette, starting at $105,000, also on display.
Fantastic. On the air live with automotive journalist Richard Saxton. Yeah, the Corvette is also an attention grabber there over the years that we've been doing this, Richard, so thanks for mentioning that. And quite a few automakers are absent this year, right? Conspicuously absent. Tell us about that.
Yeah, BMW, Mercedes-Benz, Audi, Porsche not there. And, you know, Porsche, this is one of the biggest markets here in Southern California for Porsche. Apparently they did not have their big exhibit. They take over an entire exhibit hall, but apparently they've been focused on their 75-year anniversary celebrations in various parts of the country, so they're not there. And, of course, Stellantis which covers all the Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram, Fiat, Alfa Romeo, Maserati models. Apparently not at the auto show because of the costs of that UAW strike that hit Stellantis and their brands. So, and we didn't see some other, General Motors is there because we mentioned the Chevy Corvette. So Chevrolet is there, but not some of the other brands like, Cadillac, Buick, and so on.
Very interesting. Remember earlier this year, we were at the Milken Institute Global Conference, and the news came out that GM had sold, 2 of those electric Hummers, right? Have they sold more than 2 now?
I haven't kept track. They're not selling too many, but I will say I saw the E-Blazer. It's called the Blazer, the Chevy Blazer, which is an electric vehicle, and that looked, pretty nice and maybe almost affordable. But when it comes to electric vehicles, it's your driving habits that would dictate if you want to get one or not and spend the extra money over a gas-powered vehicle. If you drive a lot of miles in a year, electric vehicles might be the answer and worth paying the extra money for. And I should say you sent me an article. This is not at the auto show, but on the Tesla Cybertruck, which is kind of big news because they're available to order for a $100 deposit, and the first delivery is November 30th. And apparently Tesla already has 2 million orders for the Cybertruck. So it could be a long wait, and they're made at the Gigafactory in Austin, Texas. So can't wait for that Elon Musk Cybertruck that we've heard so much about and seen so many pictures of for a few years now.
Absolutely. And, of course, I've been reliably informed that the Teslas do not have a new car smell. They have an Elon Musk. That's what I hear from those who have the Teslas. But let me ask you this. What about the Cyber? Is Tesla, by the way, does Tesla have a presence at the LA Auto Show at all?
I did not see Tesla there. And they have their own showrooms in various places. I know the Cybertruck, for example, is on display in San Jose and also in San Diego. So those are the first 2 to look at. But we may start seeing those Cybertrucks on the roads coming up, the end of the year. They're not going to go into full production, I don't think, until early next year. So we'll see possibly more of them in 2024.
All right. What about hydrogen vehicles there? Richard, have you noticed any there?
Well, hydrogen is interesting, Frank. I've been following it really since the 70s when BMW came out with hydrogen. That has been said by many to be, a great alternative kind of green vehicle because the exhaust is water. But hydrogen, not a big display. An interesting point you asked about alternative fuel vehicles. I was at the Orange County Auto Show about 6 weeks ago, and it had a discussion there because Orange County sells more kind of electric vehicles than anywhere else in the country. About 28% of the sales in Orange County are EVs, but that leaves over 70% that are not. So even the most electric vehicle county still has a high percentage of gas-powered vehicles out there. But in my view, I think a hybrid might be a good choice for many people because you don't drive too far in the day, but then when you take trips, you need that gas power and extra range.
Terrific, Richard. Well, thanks very much for taking the call here and giving us an update on what's happening at the LA Auto Show. That is automotive journalist Richard Saxton. His website, by the way, is saxtononcars.com. Richard, we wish you and everyone there a happy Thanksgiving, and maybe we'll catch you at the auto show before it's all said and done this weekend. Thank you very much for joining us live here tonight.
And happy Thanksgiving to you and all your listeners as well, Frank. It's always a pleasure.
Thank you very much, Richard. And this is Mottek On Money on 790 KBC. Stay tuned now for our Legal Eagle Royal Oaks on the 790 KBC News Blitz.
It could be information to change your life forever. Or the Something You Should Know podcast could just be something interesting.
Herb Cohen is one of the all-time legendary great sales trainers and negotiators. And he has some advice that will help you negotiate better. Make the other person feel superior and smarter than you. Care, but don't care too much. If you don't like the deal, walk away and see if the deal doesn't get better instantly.
Something You Should Know, wherever you listen.